With Elias Pettersson's contract situation still having a lot of uncertainty surrounding it in Vancouver, could Montreal and Kent Hughes pull another fast one and go after an RFA without a deal next offseason? We'll be talking about that possibility, plus a new article speaking to Mattias Norlinder's strengths and just why he probably should make the Habs roster this season. That and more on this episode of Habs Digest. So let's dive into this, Jesse, but the first thing we got to talk about is a bit about the team itself. This is kind of a general thing, but there was an article in the Montreal Gazette explaining why more and more fans are starting to tune back into the Habs. Of course, we had that Stanley Cup final run that was so exciting, but a lot of people maybe weren't as interested in the boring brand of Habs hockey, defensive hockey that wasn't so young. And I'll kind of show you what I mean here. In the article, they say maybe the biggest reason people are excited is because they're playing a more exciting style of hockey with a fast-paced system led by dynamic forwards Suzuki and Caufield. And they interviewed a fan, and he said, I was bored of their system. It was defensive and not a lot of offense. I had to switch teams, right? His friend is Corey Crawford, so he started cheering for the Blackhawks. But then he said, you know, when the Habs adapted to the league, a new league of smaller players, faster, creating more scoring chances, even though Montreal still is not great at scoring goals, but that will change very soon. Now they've changed the way they play, and I'm getting interested. And I think this is kind of a general statement that applies to a lot of fans, Jesse. I think us too. I feel like maybe it's just because we do this YouTube show, but I feel like I'm just more invested in the Habs than ever, and I'm maybe more excited than ever to watch Habs hockey.
And it's because we have a new school of Habs hockey that really is being engineered right now by Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes. And we're all really encouraged, and we see where it's going. And that's why, even though we've just went, through two difficult seasons, getting the first overall pick and then, the fifth pick in our most recent draft, we're still really excited because we know we're building. It was something that was due. We're doing it the right way. And the whole goal is like, not just to make a team that's like going to be good for one season, but a team that's going to be consistently good year in, year out. And to really build that, it really takes time to do it right, do it through the draft and everything else. So that's what's really exciting to see in all this, and what really, that all of us Habs fans are so excited about.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, right? Like when you have a team and you can buy in towards something in the future, that tangible goal, and when your team is especially fun to watch, right, with these young guys, faster pace of play, it really gets the fans invested. It's something everyone can rally around towards this goal in the future, and which is consistent success, right? So it's really awesome that more and more fans are tuning back into the Habs, and I really think the exciting brand of play is doing wonders for the team. And for one player, I guess, in particular, that's Mattias Norlinder. He has been showing a bit of that fast, a bit of that offensive style this preseason, and it's a little unexpected because a lot of people gave up on Mattias Norlinder, but in a recent article on Sportsnet, Cole Caufield praised him. Multiple Habs executives were kind of saying, yeah, Norlinder's good. We saw Eric Engels on the Tony Marinaro show, them both praising him. And they say he might have a real chance at leapfrogging Justin Barron. And Alex Newhook said it maybe best. He said he plays hard, has a lot of skill, skates really well, and he trusts himself. And that confidence shows often on the ice. And it comes through when he's on the ice and he's confident enough to be willing to make plays and show his skills. And that's something we didn't necessarily see from Norlinder, a guy who looked a little more passive in past preseasons, almost afraid to make a mistake. But he looks very different this year, Jesse. And I know we've talked a lot about him. You guys might be bored of Mattias Norlinder, but at the same time, I feel like this is just so unexpected from us thinking he was heading back to Europe, never to come back, to all of a sudden on the flip of a switch, and he's here making a case for the Habs roster. It's truly unbelievable.
Yeah, Mattias Norlinder is back, baby, which is huge considering like we already have a stacked defensive prospect pool. It was already good. We thought we had lost Norlinder, and he's just coming back kind of in full force and really working on a lot of the things that he needed to, right? Kind of finding that balance between knowing really when to stay calm and composed and make those confident decisions, and knowing really when to turn it on, right? So he's getting a lot of really high praise from his teammates right now. Like Cole Caufield was saying about him, like having patience and poise and the confidence to make plays, like it's something you can't teach, like those other stuff, and maybe having a little bit more of that urgency and a little bit more of that compete level. That's maybe something that can kind of come as well. Obviously, Newhook's been really big on him, just that his confidence is really shining through in his play. And for me, that's the reason why I believe like Mattias Norlinder is the type of player where, let's say he does make the Habs, or even if he does have some time with the Montreal Canadiens this year, he's the type of player I feel that could have a big influence on the game, just with his skill, just as with his mobility. I feel like it's either kind of be like kind of like a home run or kind of like a bust type of scenario. And we've seen that so far in just our evaluations. We thought for the longest time, home run, home run. Okay, then it went to bust, and now we're seeing, okay, no, maybe this guy can be a home run in the NHL. And that's just the progression of a young player trying to make his way into today's game, which is, changing a lot, but it seems to be, today a style of play that really favors his type of game.
Yeah, 100%, right? And like you said, all the things that, or a lot of the main things that were drawbacks of his game are things that are very fixable, and he's clearly been making progress on that. And I also wanted to say, like, Norlinder is not that old, right? Like, he's still in his, like, early 20s, and he's finally putting a lot of these tools together. And when you think about prospect curves, right, aging curves, as you get better every single year, I think that bodes very well for a lot of other young Habs prospects who are maybe already ahead of Norlinder, who can still grow and grow and grow in the future. The thing is, you never know, especially with defensemen and goalies, and even forwards to much of an extent. Someone like a Juraj Slafkovsky, right? The growth continues for many years, so there could be a lot more where Norlinder came from. He might just be the first domino to fall. But Jesse, let's kind of transition into a bit of a more of a future move here. And look, we know Kent Hughes is all about RFAs, and there's been a lot of talk recently about Elias Pettersson, and we got some quotes discussing his contract situation in Vancouver. And if you guys aren't aware, yeah, there's been some interesting things going on with Elias Pettersson, some uncertainty about his future in Vancouver. And yeah, his deal's up at the end of this year, but he will be an RFA until next year, until 2025, after which he'll just be a UFA. But when talking to Elliotte Friedman, Pettersson stated, quote, "I'm not in a rush to sign. I don't want to rush into anything. I still don't know myself if it's going to be a short or a long-term deal, but it's probably going to be my biggest contract so far." And he also stated, Jesse, he's like, "I just want to win. Right, I want to win. I'm here to win." In this quote here at the bottom, he said, "I'm just here to play to win. I've got 1 year left on my contract. That's all I'm gonna say." Saying this contract's not a distraction. Don't worry about it. But one of the big things is Frank Saravalli. He noted NHL insider, of course. Now, Saravalli said it's not that, Pettersson just wants to wait and see with the Canucks, which is what has been reported before. He said there's also maybe a gap in pay because Pettersson wants to be paid like a perennial 102 to 110 point guy. And while it was reported previously that Pettersson said, "I just want to wait and see how we do this year," Saravalli seems to think it's a bit more about the money. So at least one of these things has to be true, Jesse. Either the Canucks are holding out maybe a bit on the money for Pettersson, or at least they haven't come to an agreement yet, or he just wants to wait and see if the Canucks are good. And if not, maybe he wants to look for something elsewhere. And I know he's an RFA. Do you think there's any world where Kent Hughes goes after him like he did Kirby, Dach, and Alex Newhook, although the price will be much, much higher? I feel like this is not the craziest scenario for the Habs come next summer.
Yeah, we know that Canucks management is just an absolute wild card. We never quite know really to expect with him. And in a lot of ways, it seems like it could line up pretty nicely with Elias Pettersson only being 24 years old. He could, again, a young superstar, fit very nicely with this core that we already have. That being said, I think it's important to also consider what else might be available next summer.
True.
Quite possibly, and one of those big fish, you could argue the bigger fish here is Leon Draisaitl, who would be amazing a lot of ways. There's a good chance that he probably wants to continue playing with Connor McDavid, though. So it's probably more likely that Elias Pettersson is the option here. And I think a lot of players around the league, rather, are taking note of the Montreal Canadiens. I think they see that this is an organization that's doing it right, that's on the rise, So I think, a lot of RFAs will be looking to them and even free agents in the future. So for me, it makes a lot of sense. Of course, Draisaitl, you feel like he would complement Nick Suzuki so well in terms of, again, they're both 6'2", Pettersson and Draisaitl.
Mm-hmm.
Just Draisaitl a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger. Maybe it would be a nice compliment, for the 1C, and then obviously maybe Nick Suzuki being a very good 2C, but obviously Elias Pettersson would be an amazing consolation prize even if we weren't able to get Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, for sure. But again, I mean, like the thing with Pettersson, I mean, let's take a look at his stats, right? To be fair, he's been around a point per game his whole career, but this past season was the first time he jumped over 100. There was a lot of people saying, oh, like, has he been dropping off around 2021-22? But now 102 points, 39 goals in 80 games last year, and he wants to get paid like a 100-point player. And even if the Canucks, Jesse, even if we look and we see Elias Pettersson with the Canucks and he's like, I don't really want a future with this organization. I mean, that's, again, let's be honest here. That's pretty far-fetched. This is just a possibility. This is not likely, but we're exploring the scenario. Like, I feel like even if that world happens, the price Montreal would have to pay would be exorbitant, right? That we already saw we had to give up some decent capital, like Alexander Romanov, which we flipped into like the 13th pick, I believe, or 18th, somewhere around there. It turned into Frank Nazar and another pick for Alex Newhook, like a late first, right? Two quite good draft picks, and that was just for their rights as well. But with someone like Elias Pettersson, you got to think Vancouver's going to ask for at least one of Montreal's top prospects and a good amount of draft capital, even though they don't really have the leverage. Do you see a world where Kent Hughes maybe gives up some decent prospects if you can assure yourself that you're getting a 100 point, per year kind of guy in Pettersson that's you're probably gonna have to pay 10, 11 million dollars?
Well, it's a pretty tough call. But like goal scoring is one of the most important things that this team really needs. It's one of our most important needs. So he would definitely be filling that. But at the same time, you have to decide, okay, well, depending on how many draft picks, whatever they want, your rebuild could almost be over. If you're doing a trade like this, you have to feel, okay, this marks a completely different chapter in our rebuild. We're really starting to compete, after that, right? So if you feel like it's that time, if after this season you're happy with that growth, and you're able to add a player like this, some people might say it's a little bit too soon. I'll definitely leave it up to Kent because it's like, you want to wait, you want to be patient, but at the same time, you can't miss your shot with opportunities like with players like this because they just don't come around all the time. Again, goal scoring just being such a premium, so important. So for me, I would definitely have to consider it.
Yeah, I'd consider it. And again, no point in offer sheeting because Vancouver would probably just match anything you gave and the capital would be too much. But yeah, like, what do you guys think? Could Kent Hughes maybe make a trade offer for Elias Pettersson to try and get another RFA in their contract year? Let us know down below and let us know what you think the Vancouver Canucks might ask for and if it might be too much. But that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 10,000 subs and we really appreciate your support. I'm Josh Goss, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.